Welcome back. Another episode 14 of the Lyrical Ones. I'm your gracious, humble, and thankful host, Cineo, accompanied by my fellow hosts. We have June. June, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing so well. It's a nice night in here in LA.
Okay, I feel you, SoCal. Is it nice weather out there right now?
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's what's up. That's what's up. We got Alfluent in the building, about to make me cry with his attire. Alfluent, how we living? How we doing?
um, as a black person, greatness is normal. That that's all. And I'm just here to remind folks of that. Whatever you go through, greatness is normal. And however you define your greatness from one day to the next is valid and it's up to you.
Okay. I feel that. You right. Greatness is the norm. People need to understand that. Some of us forget. I think it's important that we are all reminded of that. It's a collective greatness and individual greatness at the same time. And with that, we have a special guest, Lexi. Lexi, how are you doing this evening?
I'm wonderful. I feel so honored to be here.
Okay. So
Yeah,
Lexi,
yeah.
what brings you to the table tonight? Tell us, what do you do? What is it that you wanna talk about and highlight for yourself?
What do I do? That's such a layered question. So I am a very proud, dark-skinned, curly-haired Black woman who hails from St. Louis, Missouri, but currently lives in the Bay Area. I work in the technology industry, and I am a person that's just very observant and very candid about the experiences of what Black women go through in their everyday jobs. I do not work formally in diversity and inclusion. I actually work in more of a legal and compliance role, but I've definitely been very open and candid and very loud about the hardships, the discrimination, and most importantly, how things can get better. The literal tangible things that companies and people and mid-level management can do just to be better humans and therefore stop the oppression of Black women.
I hear that. I
Tell
hear
us
that.
what.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Susan. Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, tell us what many don't see being a Black woman. What
Yeah.
there's such a ridiculous conversation going on that we have to justify our and our presence, and we have to show validity in our existence and sharing that there is no oppression taking place. um, Share with us what you see that many others are failing to see.
So I like to call it the color purple complex. So
Okay.
yeah, I call it the color purple complex. And the reason why is that I think when you talk about Black womanhood, this is nothing new. And so these are not my words. You can look at works of Alice Walker and Audre Lorde and you know Barbara Jordan and Lorraine Hansberry. And if you just read Black women writers, whether they call themselves feminists or not, if you read Black women writers pre 1980, it's just all in there. So I call it the color purple complex. And it really just stems from colonization and white supremacy, right? Because Black women are this very interesting intersection of the supremacy of the patriarchy that we're up against, but then also the supremacy of whiteness and then white womanhood, right? And so I think from bare bones, before we even get into the industry that I work in, there's this literal conscious and unconscious understanding with white supremacy that Black women can bear the weight of all the other things. Black women are strong enough to bear the weight. And what happened in history was that Black women started speaking up and saying, no, like I don't have to bear the weight, so I'm not going to. And how that's manifested, I think, in our generation is a lot of Black women, including myself, starting to really nitpick at how in which these things happen, right? So as a person who is a proud Black American, whose roots come from the enslavement of the southern states of this country, right? I always tell folks, my grandmother's grandmother was born a slave. So what she had to go through physically, mentally, emotionally, I did not have to go through. But then when I go to work, many times or talk to other Black women in this cohort, many times it just looks different, right? So you can't call me the N-word at work because we literally have like legal federal laws that say you can't, or I can take you for all you're worth, right? But it's also a sin and a shame that there are times at work where the things that I'm dealing with, I'd rather you just call me the N-word because at least that's just black and white, figuratively, than the things that I have to deal with. So microaggressions, things where I have to work 3 times as hard to possibly even be looked into a promotion. I think in the past 10 years, people use this word microaggression and they're trying to be better. And what they have become is you've had some people who have become better at not doing it. You've had other people that have become even better at hiding it. So instead of saying, hey, June, you have to work 3 times as hard to get the promotion, they're like, hey, so June's going to work hard regardless. And so is June's counterpart, who happens to be a white woman. And I'm just going to sponsor that white woman more. So every time a major project comes up, every time the CEO or the VP says, I need your team to work on X because this is the most important thing, June is never running point. So then when it's time for promotions, it's very easy to say, June, you worked really hard, but you weren't working on those really important topics this quarter or this half or this year. And then you're sitting there and you're like, but you never gave me the opportunity, but so-and-so next to me always gets that opportunity. And so for me, I look at that as I'm like, that's oppressive behavior. It's microaggressions that have become well hidden, but that is literally unfair behavior. And I think that until we just call those things out, continue to call those things out, have Black people and brown people in power who are kinfolk and not skinfolk, because there is a difference, who are also willing to call those things out and also willing to advise us on how to navigate those situations. How are we ever going to have a free corporate world society? It'll never happen.
And the experience that you're describing, how common is that? Would you say that happens in maybe half of the companies that you've worked with, or is that an experience that you've seen run rampant?
Happens all the time. I'm not going to put a number on it because I think when people listen to this, then they take numbers and they go with it. But I would say that it is common enough where this is what we consistently talk about, right? It is common enough that it's things that when you have all the Black people, seeing each other in the hallway saying, I need help with this is very common. And I think it's also common enough that it's one of the many reasons why there's not a lot of Black people in leadership or even brown people in leadership. It's interesting. I was talking to someone a few days ago and I was like, notice how Black and brown people usually just graze middle management, just kind of graze the top, right? And then as you go higher and higher, there's less and less of us. Well, the people at the top, regardless of color, at one point they were 22, young, dumb, and stupid, like we all were, right? Right? Being young, dumb, and stupid is like that part of your life is not racist. Like we all go through that point, right? So if you have a CEO of a company or a VP of a company, at one point, they were doing the same stuff that we were all doing at 22 out of college, trying to figure out our life. What is the difference between all these non-people of color at the top in their career trajectory and these Black and brown people who constantly graze the top? And there are many, many layers. One of them is this concept is that we are not getting sponsored and we are not getting mentored, right? And what that looks like is this consistent idea of feedback. I have personally been in situations in past companies where my manager will say, you're doing so great. And then the white person next to me, they're like, you need to work on this, 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 and this. And in the short term, it's like, wow, I'm so glad I'm not you. In the long term, that person is moved higher than me because that manager has made a point to say, I'm going to grow this person. I'm going to pick at them like a fine-tooth comb. We're going to take everything out of it, and they're going to become so much greater because I'm picking at them, right? The other side, and again, there's many layers to this. The other side of it, because, I'm down for the people. I'm a freedom fighter first, and we have to have these conversations with our community, is that we have been void the opportunity to dream. And it's very easy to be kicked around in your career when you don't know what you want. Because not everybody wants to have a white picket fence and a 2-story home and 2.5 kids and 1.5 dogs. That's not everybody's dream. That's okay, right? But society has taught us as non-white people that that's the dream. And where'd that dream stem from? That dream stemmed from the enslavement of our people when we couldn't have that at all. And so when chattel slavery ended, right, in the late 1800s, that's what we wanted. What we have to understand now is that this idea that not all of us want that dream is completely okay and appropriate. And what happens when we all collectively do our own inner work and say, hey, this is the dream that I want. And then you just go for that dream. So therefore, you're not working for some job that you particularly don't even care about, but yet you're dealing with all this racism and oppression, but you're like, I don't even want to be here in the first place. Like, why am I doing this? Right? So you have this formula of dealing with oppression plus you not wanting to be there in the first place. That's not going to equal a C-suite position. That's not going to equal a VP position, right? Because your passion's not there and you're treated unfairly. So what happens when we just collectively all start doing our inner work to say, this is the kind of person that I am. This is what I want to do with my life. This is how I value money, because people value money differently. And the issue with white supremacy and capitalism is everyone assumes that everybody values money as everybody wants to be a billionaire. And that's literally false. Like 1% of the population values money to that extreme, right? And then once people figure that out, they build a career around that, because your career should be highlighting the things that you value so you can have a valuable life. And then because we are Black and brown and live in a white supremacist society, you will have to deal with racism and oppression, but at least you're fighting for something that you want, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of dealing with it and getting slapped in the face every day. And you're like, but why? I don't even want to, why am I getting slapped for some ish that this is not even my thing, right? So yeah.
And this is why we have Sista Circle to talk to about what's going on. And could you tell us a little bit about Sista Circle? I know we're on a roll tonight.
So I started Sista Circle 3 years ago in 2017 because I noticed very quickly. So my first, to take a step back, I graduated from college in 2011. My first job, I did 4.5 years there. And I was the only Black person in sight my age. So 22 years old, the only Black person in sight. And there were a lot of other Black people, not a lot, but there was a cohort of Black people that I called them my elders and my fairy godmothers, but they were like in their 50s. And shout out to those women who every time that I was like, I'm about to quit, like I'm about to lose my job. Like this person gonna make me lose my job. I could go to them and they would shield me, they would hold me, and they would show me how to navigate hard situations, right? So without this cohort of women, I would not be where I was. And then after that, I went to a really hot startup. And I thought, hey, if I go to this startup, there's gonna be more Black people and people my age. And so I went to this really hot startup. And because it was a small startup, it was less than 2,000 people, but at the time it was considered one of the hottest startups in the technology industry. There were more Black people per capita, but we're less than 2,000 people. So we all knew each other, just like everybody in the company knew each other. And I noticed very quickly that I sometimes was not the only Black person in a room, but I was the only Black woman. And there were also no Black people in my department. I remember being on the hiring panel for the second Black woman in my department, right? And I remember after the interview, they were like, how was she? And I was like, she's fabulous. She is Beyonce of legal. You will hire this human, right? And since then she joined and she's been doing phenomenal life-changing work at that company. And so when I was there, I was like, this is not going to work for me. Because in order for me to be mentored and sponsored and all these things, I need to find Black women that can hold me like those fairy godmothers that are closer to my field. And so I went on Facebook one evening and I started this group and I said, invite your friends who identify as Black women in tech. And that was 3 years ago. And now we have almost 7,000 women around the world where we talk about these conversations. And pre-COVID, we would partner with companies to have these very in-person events that I like to call Blackified spaces, because I do think also part of the issue with not only tech, but all of these industries is that as people, as non-white people, when we walk into work every day, the literal decor does not welcome us, right? I've never walked into a company where I'm like, wow, you did that for me. No, that's a lie, right? I always tell people, I tell a lot of my white male colleagues, I'm like, there's a reason why office buildings are -3 degrees. And that's because until the 60s, women worked at home. And scientifically speaking, men generally are hotter than women from a temperature standpoint. That's why women are always so cold in an office. Why is it 2020 and we still haven't addressed that yet? I don't know, right? So these physical buildings don't even welcome me. And so whenever we partner with organizations, I always tell them, we're going to Blackify this space. So a good example was in September of last year, we had an event with Instagram and we turned the Instagram event space into a Black beauty shop. And we went all out, right? From the decor, from the food, we only use Black vendors or vendors of color. And the conversation that we had with the group was really about how to be authentic at work. And obviously our hair is one way to be very authentic, but also just how to be an authentic Black woman at work, because I'm very big on this idea that, and one of the things with Sista Circle is this idea that we have to fight this idea that we can't be authentic at work. I strongly believe that anyone's authenticity, regardless of who they are, what they look like, what food they eat, or how they twerk, is based on who, like fundamentally where their authenticity comes from. And that doesn't mean that you bring your whole self to work. I'm actually a very big proponent of code switching, in the idea that who I am in front of my mom is different than who I am in front of my friend, which is different than who I am in front of my grandmother. Foundationally, I'm the same, but there are a couple of differences. But I do think that we as Black women need the permission, but also need to understand the risks of that, because I don't know if the world is ready for that. But I'm very excited to be the loud, authentic Black woman at work and say, hey, you might not be ready, but there is a 22-year-old Lexi B who's coming. So I have a little bit of privilege in my career now that I'm more senior to be that person, loud and proud, for that 22-year-old who feels like she can't. And that's very important.
Yes, sis. I love it. I love it. And the idea of being your whole self, your whole authentic self, no matter where you go. But I've heard code switching. I've also heard code meshing, intentionally integrating different parts of, oh, yes, grandma. Oh, yes, auntie, with a little bit of your friends, so that everyone feels all that you are.
Oh, yeah, you have to. You have to. I think people hate the word code switching, which makes sense because especially people of color and Black and Indigenous people of color, usually it comes from this mind point of be more white. And I always tell people that look like us, I always say, when I say code switching, I'm literally saying who you are. When you're having dinner with your mom or dad, I would assume that's a different conversation when you're meeting your homegirl or homeboy for drinks for happy hour, right? Because I don't want this narrative to be, oh, bring your authentic self to work, and you bring in your whole self to work, and your boss is like, no, I don't really need to know all your sexual history. We're fine. Like, we're totally fine, right? Like, right? So I'm very big on that, is that I think we have to almost reclaim this title of code switching, or just give it a new title. And I'd love for people to tell me what their thoughts about a new title is. But I think it's coming from this place of people want us to be closer to whiteness. And in 100%, I get where that's coming from. We also need to understand that how you act at work should be a little bit different than how you act with your friends or with your partner, with your lover, with your mom, with your grandma, because it's also about like proximity to formalization and proximity to like, what layers does this person need to know about me, right? And that's very important.
Yeah, I wanted to side bus on that real quick, just because you know, the other me, not this me, right?
Yeah.
Like it is a struggle, and I've said it in
Mhm.
other episodes about the idea of code switching and what that means. And I think you highlighted the importance of, you know, something that I also am a big supporter of is boundaries. And I just wanted to kind of highlight and uplift what you said around code switching because, you know, there's a couple episodes y'all could go back and see that I'm like in the struggle of trying to cope with what those words mean because I work in the community. I am trying to empower and instill and give the, you know, techniques on what it means to be in the workforce, right?
Mhm.
To be able to
Mhm.
transition out of a system dependency based off of school to now maybe going into a different type of system. And code switching has always been, like you said, it is that thing where oftentimes it's in the scope of how do you sound more white? How do you be more white? And there's even a lot of layers within that because it's not to say it's white, right? Like there is a huge number of white people in poverty who lack education, who lack the fundamentals. I mean, you could look at the power structure that we're in right now within the government, and you could tell there is a lack, there is a
Oh
decline.
yeah, people not reading right now, and
Exactly, right?
like I don't have basic literacy skills. That's not
So
what.
it's not to say that it's to sound more white, right? It's the pronunciation, the enunciation, the articulation of words. It's how you say things and how that is conveyed. But more so, I think it's not so much changing the name as much as we redefine what it means,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
we are in a time where we're responsible and open enough where we can have dialogue conversations and think about what do we want this to mean moving forward. And I think that code switching is important because you highlight the importance of who you are in front of your mama is not the same as who you are in front of your people, right? Your friends or your you know the peers that you have at work, right? The people who you feel closer to. And I think it's important that we start to think in those terms. So that was just me little side busting for a minute
But
to
guess
just
what?
say,
To add to that, here's the fun fact. We all learn to code switch. Even white people learn to code switch. I always tell folks it's weird how 99% of the skills you need to actually be a successful, competent, respectful human being, you learn in kindergarten. Something happens with education where we allow people to lose skills. I don't know. I'm not an educator, but I do know this. If you talk to a 7-year-old, if you observe a 7-year-old is very aware that how they talk to their teacher is different than how they talk to their dad. And it's also different than how they talk to their friend. Ready for this? Let's talk about the complexity. How they talk to their friend in the lunchroom versus how they talk to their friend at recess. And it's so funny to me because a lot of times when I'm at work or even with my friends, I have to just break it down to kindergarten and first grade. We all have learned to do this. What has happened, in my opinion, is white supremacy has defined it in a horrible way and has tried to push this narrative of because you talk different, because you use different words, because you have an accent, because of what you look like, you need to sound more like me. And it's like, no, we have students who go to non-white schools who code switch beautifully every single day. And if you want to talk about languages, think about all the babies out there who literally English is their second language and how at a very young age, they're learning how to code switch to the point that they can recognize this is who I talk to English to, and this is who I talk to my mother language to. If a 5-year-old can do that, we all can do that. And I think that we forget how complicated that actually is, right? For a 5-year-old to say, hey, so when I'm at school, this teacher does not know German, right? When I go home, though, my grandmother does not know English. That's actually really complex stuff for a kid. And so if the kid can do it, we all collectively as adults need to do it.
Yeah, Lexi, you're so right. And it's just like you said, somewhere in education, right, it's allowed for the skill to be remiss. It's allowed for folks to say, well, no, you don't necessarily need to. And I guess it's one of those things in business and professional settings where we see in microaggressions and belittlement and gaslighting, we see some people just don't need to code switch for them to get promotions. Some people don't need to code switch for them to keep their job. Some people don't need to code switch when they have an interview.
They don't.
Or when they're in a meeting.
Mhm.
While others, if you don't code switch, you be looking for a new job.
Right. And that's because since we, at the lyrical ones, let's be very candid. That's because the people who don't need to do it, their proximity to whiteness is that they're white. And people hate to hear the truth, but that's what it is. Right. So just because Jerry didn't have to do it, that may not mean that you have to do some form of it. And when I say code switch, I'm not saying change the tone of your voice. I'm just saying maybe you don't come to work talking about, all the things you did with someone last night. I don't know, right? You have to decide for you what that code switch looks like. And that's the beautiful thing about being an adult. I'm not giving you a rule book to do it. I'm just saying you need to just take notice and decide for yourself, this is what I feel comfortable talking to my coworkers about, and this is what I don't. And just because this other person talks about their whole life may not mean that's for me. I always tell folks, I don't care what boundaries you have, as long as you have some. Right? And so the beautiful thing is you get to decide what boundaries you want. And sometimes you need some boundaries. That's just it. And that's okay. And that doesn't mean that you're not authentic. It means that you've just made this decision for you and your comfort and your peace.
100. 100. Episode 14 of the Lyrical Ones podcast. We got Lexi here with us. If you couldn't tell, it's going down right now. We're getting into a deep dive of previous topics that we've discussed, but also coming from a place where, Lexi, it sounds like you have a level of insight and experience that kind of encompasses the age that we live in. So, for clarity's sake, right? You do work within the tech space, right?
I do, yes.
What drove you to want to work in the tech space? What got you in that vehicle to go that direction?
The ancestors and Jesus, because it was sure as hell not me. I went to college and I went to Stanford, and everyone at Stanford goes into tech. Either you become an engineer or you become a doctor. And so me being the rebel that I am, I remember coming from St. Louis, Missouri. I didn't know what a tech company was. I distinctly remember riding my bike in downtown Palo Alto my freshman year and seeing Facebook sign. And I called my mom and I was like, Facebook has an office. And I remember she was like, you're smart enough to know that. And I was like, well, duh. Like, I know that Facebook has to have an office where people work, but I'm literally standing in front of it, right? So this is really new to me because I come from a place where beer and baseball is life, right? We didn't have tech companies. We had Budweiser, we had the Cardinals, and we had Boeing. And if you didn't work there, you were a teacher, you were a preacher, or you worked at the hospital. So this was new to me. And so everybody wanted to work at a startup or work in a tech company. And I just made the decision to say I didn't want to, and told everybody and their mom that I didn't want to. I wanted to go into fashion PR. And if you want to make the ancestors laugh, tell them your plans. And I spent my whole college career trying to go into fashion PR. Ended up my last summer before senior year, I was an intern at Ralph Lauren. And it was the hardest internship of my life. But again, shout out to Ralph Lauren, because that was the internship where I learned that sometimes people have to be hard on you for you to become great. And I had one of those managers where she just picked me out and she was like, I'm going to make you great or I'm going to kill you. Right. And she made me great. And I was offered some jobs after, and I remember coming back to Stanford and they're like, so you're gonna do this whole fashion thing? And I was like, absolutely not. The Devil Wears Prada is real. And so I was in a position where I did not have a job, but I did not want to be that one person at graduation that didn't have anything, because Stanford notoriously, when you get your diploma, I don't know if they still do it, but they'll call your name and your family's there. and they'll say what major you got your diploma in, and then they'll say what you're doing. So it'll be like, yes, and so is going to be working at Google, or so is backpacking for a year. And then if you don't have anything, it's like, and so, I'm sure you'll figure it out. Right. And I was like, that's not going to be me, because my parents are crazy. That's not going to be me.
Because my parents are crazy. You got to understand why I'm doing this. It's got nothing to do with the audience, except these two people right here.
My mom and dad are not flying to California. Absolutely not. Remember, I have the father that when he dropped me off at college, he made a reservation for his hotel stay for my graduation, and then emailed me the reservation to be like, you got 4 years. Try me. Right?
What's love? What's really love? What's love looking like?
I knew walking into senior year, I was like, oh, I need a JO. I didn't apply to any graduate programs. It was too late for that, right? So I need a JOB right now, because my parents are not the parents who are going to be like, it's okay. No, we gonna blow up. Like, we're not going to do that here. So I was very blessed and privileged, because I worked at a university that had all these connections, and I got a job in tech. And the whole idea was do the job for a year while you find yourself. And in that year, I found myself, and I was like, I think I want to stay in the tech industry, because this is very intriguing to me. So again, if you want to make the ancestors laugh, tell them your plans. That's what happened.
What's really real out here. That's so vivid. So I mean, with that, what made you want to step up in the space to be a voice, to kind of shed a light on all of these issues, challenges, problems that exist within this environment? Because I mean, when we talk about, Black women in tech, right? Sista Circle, Black women in tech, you being a founding member, right? You being someone who is vocal and is going to call out and challenge the status quo. When did that shift happen, where it's like, okay, now I'm in tech, but now I'm showing up with this to come with?
I think it was always there. I'm growing up. When I was little, my parents had this story of, I was called Mini Malcolm in kindergarten. So I was always very militant, right? I was very much an introverted. I always tell people I'm an introverted human, but I'm not shy. I just don't like a lot of people, but I'm not shy, right? I don't like to waste my time on frivolous arguments, because I'm like, this is a waste of my time. But if you go start it, I will end it, right? So as a child,
you are among family. You are among family.
It is what it is, right? So I'm like, if you poke the bear will bite. But I'm really just like, when I was little, I was the kid at school. I'm like, I'm just sitting here eating my turkey sandwich. Poke it again, though, it's gonna be a problem. And I think it's funny when you grow up and you start learning your parents as adults. My parents are the same way. They won't admit it, but they're the exact same way. So I know where it comes from. And so when I started working at my first company, which was NetApp, at first I was just dealing with trying to, there's layers here. Being the only Black person in the room, being 22, people forget that growing up is hard work. No one prepares you to grow up. It is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, right? You leave college or you leave high school. Some people start growing up a little bit earlier, and you're like, oh, I have to pay taxes. What is that? Right? Like, oh, my car insurance. What is that? That's I have to do that. Like, I have to give State Farm $200. Like, why you need $200 a month, right? So I was dealing with all this stuff. All my friends were moving away. There's so many layers. So initially, I didn't even hit the layer of being a Black woman in tech. The layer that I hit at my first company was being a new college grad, because I realized then I was just dealing with growing up for my first 2.5 years. And I noticed that my company didn't have a new college grad program. So somehow I weaseled my way into the head of engineering for my company. I somehow got in his office one day, and I was like, I need $10,000 to start a new college grad program. And he was just like, I don't know who you are. And I was like, sit, let me explain. And so I just told him everything. I was like, you have 300 new college grads who most of them work for you in engineering, and we have no clue what is going on. We don't know what life is. We can barely pay rent. I told him, I was like, I've never paid rent in my entire life. And I'm just so mad that every month some white man is asking me for money. For what? right? I'm like, I just got a lot going on. And I said, and then on top of it, we see each other in the hallway and we're awkwardly looking at each other. So we know that all of us are in this like weird state of hell, but you don't put budget in for us to just be together in this state of hell. And so he gave me $10,000 and he said, okay, go do something. We'll check up in 6 months. And that was how my community building started. So I built a new college grad program. And it was so great because I think that being young, dumb, and stupid, I always tell new college grads this, is that adults will give you anything. So I got to just go up to senior leadership and be like, will you come speak to us? And of course they love it, right? Of course I want to speak to the new kids, right? And that program really fueled this idea for me of how do I grow up? Then after that, I really started thinking about, okay, so I'm different because we have all these new college grads here and I'm one of 2 Black ones. And the other one, he's from Kenya. We different. And we never got along. And I think we never got along is because his ignorance and my ignorance, he saw me in the hallway and he thought that I was going to be a certain type of Black. And then I saw him in the hall and I was like, you gonna be a certain type of Black. And then we were never these definitions of Black that at 22 we saw for each other. And it was, you know what I mean? Like we never really, there was no hate. It was all love, but we never really built this strong relationship. And so after this new college grad program started forming and I started realizing that, no, I'm really the only one in this room. That's when I started really having conversations with myself about what does that look like? And it's interesting because I sat on that for a few years. I didn't know what to do. I was so focused on my career. I was focused on, do I go to another company? I would talk to a lot of my friends at much bigger companies and consumer-based companies, right? I call them the sexy companies like Google and Facebook and Instagram and Netflix, right? And so at first I thought, well, maybe if I go to one of those, it'll be better, right? And then I went to one of those and it was the same. So, right? So trial and error. And that's how Sista Circle got started.
Okay. I see. I mean, it's funny you say that about, having your fellow, colleague who just so happened to be from Kenya. We've had that discussion on one of the episodes about the difference between what it means to be from the States and then what does it mean to have immigrated, right, from your home country, right? Like it's a big difference. It's not to paint anything or cast a negative light. It's just to say it is different. There's
right, yeah.
And I appreciate you saying that, between the 2 different types of ignorances that were taking place, because once you're able to call that out, because you're not able to do it in the moment, it's only when you're able to step away and you look within yourself to identify like what is keeping me from you. Because I think that's an important message people should really like think about, is especially as Black people in today's state of the world, more than ever, we need to look at ourselves and the ignorance that we're holding on to that is preventing us from connecting with our family. Because whether we want to admit it or like it or not, they are family, right? They are kin to an identity that we're trying to get to know, that we're trying to develop, to dive into. And I think that when we look at the ignorance and we address that first, then we can take their ignorance and be able to address that next. And I appreciate you saying that, because that's
real. Number one, Blackness is not a monolith, which is the beauty of Blackness. Number 2, we like you said, white supremacy comes in many forms, and our cousins and brothers and sisters who are on the motherland continent, don't get it twisted. White supremacy has definitely ransacked all over that, right? But there's like a fundamental difference. There's a fundamental difference in dealing with white supremacy, but not seeing it in your face every single day, right? Versus being taken from your home and put into a different home and then being told you can't have your culture. So then having to create a new culture that just so happened to be fire. Like it just so happened to be fire, but like we had to create it for survival. It wasn't this thing that we all sat behind the fireplace and we were like, that sounds good. Rap. That's not what happened, right? Like we did it for survival because people took it, like literally people forget that part of enslavement was that they the trauma of it was you cannot speak your language. You cannot sing your songs. You are a different person, right? And then we have people coming here as immigrants in the immigrant story. Whenever I talk to my Black diaspora friends who are immigrants or whose parents are immigrants, it's just very interesting because in some parts of it, they'll say things like, I feel more connected to an immigrant who's not Black than you, who is Black. And it makes complete sense to me because I don't understand the immigration, the immigrant experience. I was put on a boat. I didn't want to show up. Right? So, okay, fam, I get it. Right. And I think that we have to have these conversations amongst us because, fun fact, white supremacy, again, there've been a lot of negative things that have been put into our heads about our diaspora family that are not true. And they did that to divide us because God forbid all Black people around the world just come together. Right. And we all just roll up in Wakanda and we're like, so we just going to take this over. It'd be a wrap. Be a total wrap. And so I think that the more conversations we have collectively about that, the stronger that we become. But we first have to break down all those insecurities.
No, you're right. You're right. It's trippy because it is a thing where, like for me, right, I'm Black and brown. My mother's from Texas and my father's from El Salvador. And so there's an element of what it means to have a uniquely Black experience, but then there's also the dynamic of understanding what it means for someone to come from a whole nother land, speak a whole nother language, and have this immigrant process, right? There's something that people can explore and get to know and understand when the dialogue is there, but if it doesn't happen, then it always remains in a vacuum. And I think that, I'm more interested in how do we find those ties that bind, because there's a lot more than we seem to realize. But a lot of times we get lost in the sauce of our own concoction that we never jump out to see what's going on in the other sauce, right? And I think that's kind of the key that you really highlighted, is that we're at a transformative moment in time, right? Like we're in this place where, you're speaking so many truths that I experience every day, and I don't even work in tech, right? I work in the nonprofit world. I work within the sphere of, community engagement, right? And trying to help flourish, develop people. A lot of the work is the same. It's just that the executions or the deliverables look different, right? The people at the top look the same, and the people who are oftentimes speaking up look the same, but they try to marginalize us, they try to divide us, they try to have us in these categories because, especially here in Lyrical Ones, we try our best to build those bridges, right? Like we have people on here who otherwise, when you see them on the outside, you just gonna be like, whatever. It's whatever. You whoever you are. But we try to really get to know, build with, and have people understand that we're all in this struggle. We're all in a variety of like challenges, layers, systematic oppressive issues that are like they're impacting us, right? And it's only when we can start to see each other struggle we can go somewhere, that we can drive and be directed in some type of mobility. Because I think that more than ever, organization, being organized, right? Having some clarity around like, what's your role and what is your responsibility to the community, right? Because I think that's key, right? We come from tribal communities. We come from tribal backgrounds, and everyone had a role within the tribe. It was your responsibility to uphold what those tenets were, right? What are you going to hold and bring back to the community so we could move forward? So I appreciate the fact that you show such key leadership and the ability to like really bring it together. Because I think that that's key right now, is that we need you. We need these conversations. We need this dialogue. And it's time right now, like to get it going,
And I think to add to that, I think back in the day, it wasn't just everybody had a role and knew it. It was everybody had a role. Everyone knew their role. And everyone was also 100% aware that that role was of utmost importance, right? I always tell folks, it's very interesting how when people want to talk about freedom fighting and there's this narrative around, well, if you're not protesting, you're not doing anything. And I'm like, but people forget that when you look at every major freedom fighting movement, right? And modern day history, one, probably started by a Black woman. Two, and didn't get praised for it. Two, if the mom and dad are going protesting, somebody has to watch the babies at home. If MLK and Medgar Evers and Malcolm X and Rosa Parks are being driven in the South in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, which is very, very dangerous, somebody has to cook food when they arrive, because they can't stay at hotels, right? Somebody has to make sure the bed is made. And so I really want to add to your point and bring that home, is that it's not just everybody has a role and knows their role. It's like, no, every role is a freedom fight. And I think that we all need to come with that perspective. Every role is a freedom fight, because this is how this puzzle works. Because not everybody can protest every day. Not everybody can go to Washington. Not everybody's going to be Obama, right? Not everybody's going to do the whole Jay-Z and Beyonce and just drop a ton of cash. But everybody has a role, and we need to collectively enhance that narrative to say, my role is not less than or bigger than your role. And how can I support you in your freedom fight? Because what you're doing is helping me, and what I'm doing is helping you, which helps the community.
Appreciate
So
your
right,
people.
Lexi.
Yeah.
That's right. Because like for me, I'm so excited. Some people say they're podcast out because there's all these podcasts showing up all over the place. But like everybody's got all this time. It's like, and they say, oh, well, I do have a voice and I do have some friends. Let me talk to them.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like every role is of utmost importance. Like my podcast is not more than your podcast. My community that I'm a part of is not more or less than your community that you're a part of. They both have a need for lifting up voices. And like I can't, it's not that I can't, but I shouldn't be the one who necessarily starts a Sista Circle. Right? It's not me that should be showing up and saying, hey, I need these Black sisters to speak up and have their time together. Like that's great, but I should be looking for the Sista Circle in other communities and saying, hey, did you know about this? Did you know about this? Because this community here is waiting for you and your voice, for your input, your insight, and also to welcome you.
Yeah. What y'all are doing at Lyrical Ones is a freedom fight, right? And it's funny because whenever I'm down and trying to figure out, am I doing enough? I always go back to James Baldwin, who is the king of all kings. And for folks who don't know, James Baldwin moved to Paris. He was like, F this racist establishment, I'm out. The only reason why James Baldwin came back to the US was that when he was in Paris, he realized, wait a minute, I might not be able to march every day, but I'm a writer. And so my role in this freedom fight is to tell what happened in the freedom fight. And so I always use that as an example of like, it's a role. And I think that what all of you are doing at Lyrical Ones, this is the platform that you're creating. That's the freedom fight. That's the role, to have these candid conversations and to make this art, this very real and candid art, and to stand on that. And that's your role, because we need it. In the next century, someone's going to look back at this and it's going to tell the story of what's going on right now in 2020. And that's because all of you stepped into your role. And that's pretty powerful.
It's going to tell your story.
Fire guests. Exactly, June, because we had fire guests like Lexi B, like her rap name. She dropped her rap name. Many people didn't trip. She dropped her pen name down.
It should be a rap name. We should make a single. I'm up for it.
It's coming.
So with that, I wanted to highlight something. Unfiltered. What does that mean?
It is all encompassing me. In my freedom fighting role for Black women, what I started realizing was that I was doing a lot of mentorship to Black people and Black women about the early stages of their career, which I'm actually very, very invested in because of what happened to me. And so I decided, what if I just created this really fun platform for myself that I could just talk to people and just give them really candid tips and advice on just their career, regardless of what color you are, again, regardless of what food you eat, regardless of how you twerk, it is for everyone. But it definitely comes from my lens, which is a Black woman's lens, because I do fundamentally believe, why are people out here making the same mistakes that I made in my 20s if I already made them? Find new mistakes, make different mistakes. Don't make the mistakes I made. That's actually stupid. So how can I, through these many one-on-one conversations that I would have with people, like my friends would say, talk to this person, Lexi, talk to this person. But how can we make that bigger? Because during the one-on-ones and during the coffees and the lunches and the brunches, pre-COVID, obviously, I noticed that we're having the same questions, right? So we're having these people coming out of college and they're saying, so I have this job, what do I do? Right? I'm talking to 23-year-olds and they're like, I don't know what my manager wants. And I'm saying, did you schedule one-on-ones with your manager? And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, oh, we should talk about that. This is why this is important, right? Or having conversations with, this is how you write a review. I distinctly remember my first review. No one set me down about it. No one told me about it. Honestly, there was this man named Mark who sat down the hall who was also a Stanford grad. And I knew that because he had all these Stanford football posters. And I was smart enough to be like, I went to Stanford too. And I went to him one day and I said, people are talking about reviews and I have no clue how to do mine. And he just sat down with me and helped me do mine, probably because we both went to the same school, but we're like 15 years apart. So how can we evangelize this message louder if a lot of these people are having very similar experiences of just how to be an adult? And that's where Unfiltered came from. So it's an Instagram thing and a Twitter thing, but really on Instagram, it's once a week, every Monday, I just put a post up and I'm like, this is the theme of the week. Let's talk about this. And it's become this very passion project of mine. And I get a lot of responses back and a lot of feedback because I just want people to know that, number one, they're not alone. I think it's very important. And I get very emotional when I talk about that. Loneliness on top of not knowing what's going on top of trying to navigate your life, is the absolute worst. And so if anything from Unfiltered, I just want all these new college grads and professionals to know, like, you're not alone. And all these people that are older than you who like walk around like they have it together, one, they don't. And two, the ones that kind of do, they were just like you. So how about we just sit down and break this wall and just figure out what you can do, like what tangible things you can do in your career on a daily basis for you to be better at your job, for you to look more organized, but most importantly, for you to figure out what you want to do when you grow up.
Oh, that is, you got it. Or for those that are only in the audio only version of this, I'm doing a whole bunch of hand gestures that pretty much is signaling and showing that Lexi is on point. Lexi has been on point this whole conversation, right? Like really on the pulse in like you are the figure we need. We need you. We need to see you. We need to uplift you. We need to highlight you. You need to be known because the work that you're doing is incredible work and it's work that is necessary. And it's more important that it's coming from you than anybody else. I just want to say that. But
thank you.
I mean, it's real because I'm saying it because they done heard me on here a bunch of times talk about the other me and what I got to deal with. And, you know, hearing you speak and encapsulate and just speak with such profound direction, right? Such a clear message, a clear thought. I'm coming from a perspective of, you know, I've done organizing, I've done things in a different capacity, and I'm trying to fuse so many things together. And hearing you speak has let me know that there's multiple work happening in so many different spaces, places, faces, and it's empowering, it's encouraging, it's uplifting. And I'm so glad and thankful that you took the time to be with us to say all these things. But there is something that I want to highlight because you know, without giving too much away, you know, where do you work currently? Like, what is your role currently?
So currently, I'm the senior program manager for privacy for Twitter.
So understand what that means, right? There's a lot of significance and power in what that is for her to be in that position, because it signals to me, whatever little babies I have, they have a chance, right? They have the opportunity, right? But not just that, being the head of privacy, what does privacy mean to you, especially in this day and age, and you working for a company that is, you know, people are so quick to show so much of themselves, and Twitter of all places, you know, there is no restrictions. So you tell me, what does privacy mean to you?
Yeah. So just to correct you real quick, I'm not the head of privacy for Twitter. If I was, then I'm gravely underpaid. But what I do at Twitter is I'm the senior program manager. I work on the privacy legal team. So I'm basically I'm the glue to the puzzle for a lot of these privacy issues that Twitter has to face. In the same issues that a lot of tech companies have to face, right? And when you face these problems, you have to literally bring groups of people that aren't just in legal, they're in compliance, they're in policy, they're in engineering. It takes an effort to get all this stuff done. That's what I do, high level. Privacy is a lot for me. I think one, because I'm an introvert. And one, two, because it's very important to protect the people that are in my life. For example, I said yes to come hang out with you this evening. And I'm so glad that I did. They did not say yes to come hang out with you this evening. So it's very important for me to have those boundaries and protect them. And then also, I think that it's just my boundary. It's a sacred thing to me. My family is very, very sacred. And it's important that they have the ability to tell their story the way in which they want to say it. And a story can be as symbolic as a whole autobiography, like do a whole complete Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And it can be as simple as I had brunch with Mikey today. But that's your story. And so I've never really been the person that highlights stuff on social media when it comes to my personal stuff. My rule for social media is this: if I'm comfortable telling my boss this, it goes on social media, right? I think because I'm so candid, many times people will see my social media and they'll be like, you'll tell your boss that? And I'm like, I probably told her that like 2 hours ago, right? But I've also worked very hard, and also with working hard and luck and privilege, because you have to understand all those layers which are there, right? I'm at a space in my career where I've just decided I'm not stopping my authenticity for other people. So if who I am professionally does not vibe with you, then we don't really have to vibe with each other professionally. And that doesn't mean that we can't kick it and we can't be cool outside of work. But like, we can just all get new jobs, right? I will no longer sacrifice that part of me. And I learned that at my first job. I like made a commitment to myself at 26, 27. I was like, never again. And that's just for my own survival because of who I am. So usually on social media, I will comment on things when it comes to the government, things that I'm thinking. I definitely just had this huge Twitter post after work today before coming to visit y'all. I went on Architectural Digest because Misty Copeland, who is everything, just showed her whole house on Architectural Digest. And like, I may or may not have now just like bought a year subscription to Architectural Digest because I'm like, that was fire. Someone pay me for a velvet blue couch. Pay me, right? And so those kinds of things. But when it comes to like my personal life, when it comes to my family, when it comes to who I'm romantically linked to, it's just not going to happen because that is sacred space, which means that if you are invited to that space, come through with bells and whistles. But to be 100% transparent, I didn't ask for your opinion, and that person did not ask for your opinion either. So I'm not going to put them on a stage or a spectrum for you to give that opinion.
Y'all see what's happening right now? This is what grace looks like. Yeah. This is what the sauce really is. I don't think y'all get it, right? That's power. That's powerful, right? It's women in power. Get it? Women and power. Think about it.
I got it.
So the thing is, it's, you know, what you're highlighting, what you're bringing. Yeah, I see how Affluent hit him with a bam. But I'm just saying, the thing is, to me, that's important about what you're saying is giving space for boundaries. I think that is so significant in this day and age. You know, it's so easy to lose sight of how much attention do you really need versus the attention that you're about to get. And, you know, okay, my bad. You know, you are kind of you are the senior program manager on your way to being VP, on your way to being the head of whatever table there is, right? Yeah. But I think what you've kind of shown is a level of confidence. And I want to know, where does this confidence come from? Because I think it's so important. I have so many Black women in my life, and confidence is always on the battlefield. It is always in constant fight. And I think hearing you, seeing you as a woman on fire, and not on fire to be burned down, but on fire to give life and to give energy and to give warmth, where does this confidence come from?
Unfortunately, it doesn't come from this this ethereal positive place. It comes from being in rooms with people who don't look at me and realizing very quickly they're not intelligent.
Bars.
I hate to say it like that, but that's really true. So what
You do not hate to say it like that. That's not true. You do not hate to say it that way.
It is what it is. It is what it is. I think one, to be very transparent, when I was younger, I was involved in musical theater. My mom put me on a stage as soon as possible. I think one, because she heard me singing in the shower and she was like, oh, she can carry a note. And then I think the other thing was that she was very aware that she was like, I think she needs an outlet. And for anybody who's a parent or a godparent or a fairy godparent or an uncle or an aunt, I cannot stress you enough the importance of putting a child in theater. They don't have to become Denzel Washington, but the things that I've had to do from the ages of 5 to 18, most people haven't had to do. I always tell my managers, I get a lot of feedback, which as you should at work. And I've had managers who've told me, like, you just take feedback so well. And I'm like, I used to do musical theater. Y'all really can't say nothing that's really gonna make me cry, right? Because like at 15, I used to get feedback where it was like, you're too dark to be in this scene. So it's like, y'all say something. Like, y'all not gonna say anything crazy. And so I think that this musical theater and stage background gave me stage presence. So it's not that until about 5 years ago, it wasn't that I was confident, but I had the stage presence to say, we're going to pretend that I'm confident. I do think that confidence plays a lot in your career. And I learned that at around 23, 24. And I said, wait a minute. So even if you're not confident, if you just act confident, you're going to get more. Let me just act confident and get 15K added to my salary because I want to go shoe shopping. Like, that was literally my thought process, right? About 5 years ago, I started really, my therapist, and shout out to therapy, for everyone. Everybody needs it. And my therapist said, let's really delve into this confidence. And I said, okay. And she said, but why aren't you confident? And so she gave me a homework. And she said, this week, I want you to go to work. Instead of talking in meetings, unless you have to, just watch people. And that's what I did. And so I went to my meetings, and the meetings that I had to speak up that I did. And the ones that I didn't, I just watched the people in the room. And the majority of people in the room were white and they were male. And I realized very quickly, I was like, wait a minute. You don't know what you're talking about. And it just dawned on me. And it wasn't just one meeting. It was every single meeting that I realized that a lot of this leadership stuff, these people that are confident, these people that I'd work at a company and everybody would bow down to their graces. I was like, oh, so they get paid a lot of money to come to meetings and just ask questions, but we're all sitting here giving them the information. So why am I not confident? Because if I actually know the information and can articulate it better than you, why am I not confident? Because I've already showed myself that I know this more than you do. And that's part of leadership. Like when people get higher in their career, your job is to be more strategic and less like in the weeds. But I'm talking about literal manifestation of like, this person's not very intelligent at all. Right. And that's when I really started regaining this confidence as an adult, because I just decided to really tap into this space of like, no, I actually know what I'm talking about. And you don't. So you can disagree with it. You can be mad at it. You can have a temper tantrum. You can call your assistant. I can sit there with grace and just literally sip tea and watch you do all of these things. But I know but I'm right. And I have all the receipts to prove it. So as long as I have this stuff written on paper, do you, boo? And that's really where it stemmed from. Yeah.
I mean, to take it from a practice to having it be a part of who you are, and to be so passionate, you know, to be fueled by your passion, I think is like, it's something that, you know, don't take it for granted, right? If you have a child or if you are in a space and you have the time, there's always space to learn. There's always an opportunity if you're willing to invest in yourself or invest in your seeds to give them those techniques and those skills that can manifest themselves in a variety of ways. And I think you really highlighted in how your family took that time. Maybe they knew, maybe they didn't know, but they were investing in you
Yeah.
for these things to grow with you, to then manifest them as like these new weapons to be used in this battle that we're all currently in. Like,
Yeah.
it's profoundly beautiful. It's poetic justice, but it's also like it's the truth, right? We oftentimes
all of
take it.
my kids will be in theater, and that sounds horrible. I mean, like, they can do other stuff if they want to, but the things that I learned in theater, and it's funny when I talk to the people that I did theater with back in the day, they say the same thing. Because very few of us are professional, Broadway stars. And we're all like, they're all like, oh yeah, I'll literally walk into work and they'll be like, we have a presentation today to see you. Like, I got it. Right. And so I could not stress that enough. Obviously, you have to cater to your kids' passions, but I cannot stress enough that your 12-year-old needs to be in the school play. They need to learn that skill. They need to learn the skill of, okay, I'm on stage. There's 100 people in the audience and I don't know any of my lines. What do I do? Figure it out, fam. Right. And so that's really this foundation that I have. And I mean, thank God that I have it, because at 15, I didn't realize that was going to be the foundation of my career. But that's really where it came from, was this idea that I'm very flexible at work. I can walk into one room and I can be in many ways a character. And then I can walk into another room and I can be the therapist. And then I can walk into another room and I can be the mom, and I can read the room. Right. So I can read the room and say, okay, this is what the room needs right now, even though they don't know it. And that's definitely really helped my career. So just put your kids in theater. Like, make them do like a play every other year if they don't like it. But like, it's really important. They'll thank you later.
Lexi, you are amazing.
Effortlessly being yourself.
Yeah.
Lexi, where can we find your social media handles?
You can follow me on Twitter at @Unfiltered, and then on Instagram at @Unfiltered. And I can give you that info and you can put on your thing. But yeah, that's where I am, hanging out.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, we definitely gonna have to do a part 2 of this, Lexi.
Yeah, let's do it.
You have given us so much to really process, digest, and go through. But I appreciate you taking this time with us. Anybody else, any final thoughts with Lexi before we gotta let Lexi go?
Real quick, Lexi, want to know, once again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here with us. Wanted to know if Sista Circle had anything going on, or how people can get in touch with Sista Circle.
Yes, so Sista Circle Black Women in Tech, you can go on, you can follow us. So our Facebook and LinkedIn group were actually closed for Black women who are in the technology industry. So if you identify as that, you can go on those 2 platforms and look us up and we'll be there. Instagram and Twitter, which is open to all. It is at Sista Circle, BWIT. And because of COVID, we haven't been able to meet in person. So what we've been doing is we have monthly master classes with our members who are we have some of the most amazing members and leaders in the tech industry that happen to be Black women. And they're giving these master classes on important skills and tips and tricks. So we actually have one of Silicon Valley's one of the first Black women CEOs. And she's speaking to the group next Wednesday, which is going to be pretty awesome. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. One of my friends just led the master class, this previous master class. Shout out to Kata.
Yeah.
Out there in the East Coast.
Yeah. She did a good job on working from home and just how to navigate all that craziness.
Yeah.
Of this.
And like she calls it, winning from home.
Yes, she calls it winning. #winning from home. Yes, she does.
Winning from home.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Lexi, so much. We appreciate you. Can't wait for you to come back.
Let me know when. I'm just at home minding my Black business, so let me know when.
That's what's up. We out here. Lexi,
too many bars.
Too many bars. Blessing us with your presence. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to kind of carry on, highlighting some things, right? We got Lexi with us. This is episode 14. This is kind of the halfway marker, if you will. I'm going to do some housekeeping real quick and then just highlight some things that are coming up, especially within the LO family and the LO universe. Lyrical Opposition has an event coming up on Saturday, 9 a.m. Saturday morning cartoon vibes, if you're ready. Craft Factory, it will be a workshop around 90s themed cartoons, Rugrats. Okay, like really understand the profoundness. We had a little powwow before this, and we was talking about like understanding the groundbreaking structure of the family dynamics within Rugrats and understanding how they showed up and presented not only as babies, but as they showed up as a family, right? Seeing these strong leadership women who had jobs and these men who definitely were trying to figure out who they are. Like, you know, think
As
about it.
nurturers.
They were the nurturers. They were there. You know, they were trying to discover themselves as much as they were figuring out their role. And I think that that's profound. Like, we don't think about it because we just watched it, but I'm like, you know, you think about the twins and how they kind of bucked the identity of what it means to be boy or girl, right? Like, they really were challenging us to really think about things in a different capacity. And I think that you know, 90s themed cartoons, I mean, come on, that's how I was raised. That's where I came from. That's my roots. So
Yeah,
you
with
know,
a big bowl of cereal. What's your guys' favorite cereal? Or Saturday morning? No, what's your favorite cereal that y'all be eating watching Saturday morning cartoons?
So many good cereals, so much sugar out there, Let's start with Waffle Crisp. Let's because you know I gotta come with heat first. Waffle Crisp, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Apple Jacks was legit, Golden Grams was legit, Corn Pops was legit. Shout out to my pusher Kellogg's and General Mills for coming through, keeping my attention real short. You know, when I needed it to be. When I needed it to be, I had it short because them books just kept me too focused. Them words, them rhymes, them poems just kept me too focused. But thanks to General Mills and Kellogg's for coming through with that heat.
shout out to Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles. Shout out to the gang out there, the Flintstones, you feel me? The Bare Feet Tribe. It's real. I mean, I agree. Captain Crunch, both with the berries, without the berries. I'm going in. I mean, you really, when you said Cinnamon Toast Crunch, like that's the end all be all for me right there. But then you got, I mean, they literally was selling us cookies for breakfast. Like Cookie Crisp was a thing. Like, think about that, right? Like, hey, you need the meal to start your day? Just get a bowl full of cookies and you're gonna be on your way. And it's like, what?
The training on consumerism and the new label on a box that you had seen before, when all they did was switch up the Lucky Charms and put a new marshmallow on there, but you had to know, like, I'm still affected, I'm still impacted by that new sign. Like, why do I need the new whip? Why do I need new glasses? Why do I need a new watch? Why do I need new shoes? Because they trained me at a young age to get the new. And when you talk about the same system, when you talk about food deserts and grocery stores that got 14 different flavors of Oreos and 15, 16 different types of bacon on the same rack, all in the same store, and there's no health food store around, and you talk about the commercials and the cartoons that's keeping you like focused on the external and not the internal, I think we gonna have to bring on our next guest. We need some good vibes in here. We need some healing to happen in here.
Yeah, I wonder what his favorite cereal is. Hey,
yes.
The lyrical ones. We got Michael Kim-Eubanks, a multi-instrumentalist and songwriter whose sound traverses and bends different styles and generations. Michael likes to tell honest and interesting stories that gives others permission to do the same. Michael's previous projects include an alternative rock band and an R&B band, as well as directing music for a couple of local Bay Area churches. Michael also has an ongoing project called The Lament Project, a multimedia, autobiographical, and spiritual exploration. But with so much more to learn, let's hear it from himself, Michael Kim-Eubanks.
You know, y'all were making me sad because I was allergic to milk. So I couldn't eat any of it. Like literally on Saturday morning, my dad would come down the stairs. He would pour a box of Captain Crunch. He poured the milk in, and then he would go back upstairs and sleep for another hour. Okay. I had to have oatmeal. Now I love oatmeal. I still love oatmeal to this day. That was my thing, right? Like
Me too.
Right. But he did this Captain Crunch, and he would come back an hour later. He'd come back and he had the same white Mercedes-Benz shirt, like the sweatshirt that he wore every Saturday morning with these short shorts on. He's like a well-built guy. He's like 5'10", but he had like huge calves. So he'd like walk down the stairs, be like, hey, and you trying to watch. What was I watching? I don't even know. I feel like it was Winnie the Pooh, Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, you know, that kind of deal. And he will eat that Captain Crunch, and I'd just be like, that looks so good. And then I would have a bite, and I would start coughing because it like triggered an asthmatic reaction in me.
And I mean, with Captain Crunch, you won't really miss it much. That cut up the top of your roof in your mouth. I mean, I mean, that's neither here nor there. We're happy that you're here with us now.
Good. That's good. It's great to be here.
What that says is that your dad was a risk taker, first of all, eating that Captain Crunch and rocking that, you know, that short long sleeve sweater.
Yeah. Like there was a short long sleeve sweater with some short shorts. And then I'd be like, hey, let's play some basketball. And he would take me to the woodshed. I mean, he would just like back me down. I was a thin kid, and he wasn't messing around. So
a lot of fundamental lessons being learned in your household. Definitely. You ain't getting no shortcuts, no breaks. You're gonna learn what world is all about right now.
Right now. That's exactly right.
Oh my! How are you doing this evening? How are you doing?
I'm feeling excellent. I'm feeling real good. I was just talking to two of my buddies, and you know, it's a weird life, right? Like one buddy's in Washington, the other one's in Richmond. You know, we can't hang out, but you know, we're doing it. So I'm feeling great.
That's what's up. I mean, thank you for being here with us and you know, taking the time out to have this conversation with us. But more importantly, I mean, kind of take us back. Like you are a multi-instrumentalist, right? You're a songwriter.
Yeah. I
mean, from Captain Crunch and getting dogged out in basketball,
right? Where
does music become the aha, like this is me, this is who I am, this is what I want to do? When did that happen?
Well, so what had happened was that I was born into a divorce. Okay. I'm not trying to take you way back. I can go quick, you know, but I was born into a divorce, but my biological father was a musician. Wow. And so there's a genetic component to things, right? In my mom's family, who they basically raised me, my mom's mom made all of her children play an instrument. They got to choose it. Funny story. One of my aunts was like, well, if I get to choose an instrument, I'm going to try to choose one that you can't find a teacher for. So she was like, I want to play the accordion. And she thought she was hella clever. And then they found an accordion teacher 3 blocks from their house. So she had to carry an accordion 3 blocks down the street every week for like 4 years.
You ain't getting no ride. You just need to be strong.
Nope, because you thought you were smart. You thought you had this on lock, and then no, thank you. So you know, I think it was sort of by the age of 2, I'm in the children's church choir, right? By the age of 4, I'm taking piano lessons. I grew up in LA, when they still called it South Central. I'm taking piano lessons at LA City College. And it's a wrap after that. Like I would come home from piano lessons like this is the best thing ever. And between singing and playing the piano, I was good. And then they told me I could pick another instrument in elementary school. So I was like, I'm going to play the flute. And then I was not secure in myself in junior high school. If anybody was, you are a superior human. I was not. And so all these kids were making fun of me because I was the only boy in the flute section. And so I felt like I couldn't handle it. So I switched to trombone. So I played trombone. Yeah. And then I got bored of trombone. I don't know why. It's actually great. I actually picked it back up again for jazz band. But I got bored of trombone. I looked in the closet of our band room and I saw a French horn. And I was like, I want to play that. And my teacher's like, well, no one's playing it. So I took it home. My mom was like, what is that? I was like, it's a French horn. I'm gonna learn how to play it. She was like, you strange. And then 2 weeks later, I brought it back. I was like, Mr. Zielinski, I'm ready to play now. And then later on, years later, everyone was like, the French horn is like the hardest brass instrument to play. And I was like, no, it's fun. It's great. So I think, everybody's got that thing where it just feels like this is the way you can make sense of the world. Like that's just instruments, right? So my most recent instrument is my most passionate instrument, which is a guitar. So I picked up the guitar in college. And I've been playing a lot of guitar. And in fact, I have only gained more appreciation for it, especially recently, because essentially there's a way that as I am trying to kind of find a lot of love and grace for myself in a Black body, I am realizing that basically like when Black people invented the blues, they did it on the guitar. And then the most famous guitar player no one's ever heard of is a Black queer woman named Sister Rosetta Tharpe. And I like watched her play and I was like, oh, this is the real thing, right? So I think these days I play guitar kind of with a protest energy a little bit. Yeah. So
which is, I think, kind of pioneering anything, right? It's got some protest energy to it.
Yeah. I don't know if anything,
anytime create.
I would play something. I don't know if it's going to sound good. Is what I'm.
We don't know either. We don't know either.
But no, I mean, we down to go down that road, please, by all means, because I've lost my ability to play anything. So please, let's go. Let's do it.
We would love to hear you. Oh, wow, you're ready with the white pearl. Oh, great.
All right. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
We're gonna just see what happens.
That's right. We're just gonna see what happens. Let's see. What do I need to do is the question. Stuff is plugged in. Here we go. We're gonna try it out. Now, I'm not trying to be too loud, so you'll have to excuse me if some weird happens. I know that if I push those buttons and do that.
So as we see here on episode 14 of the Lyrical Ones podcast, we are going to experiment live and in the recording. I think we should keep this. We should not lose this. This is fundamental for our growth.
Yes, the Michael Kim-Eubanks experiment on Lyrical Ones.
You can hear my guitar, or you can hear my voice right now, I presume.
Yes, we can hear your voice.
Yes.
Great. Let me see if this guitar is, let me see here. Oh, I know why it's not working. Because sometimes you have to plug stuff in, like
that's true. That's a key component.
It is a key component. See, it's going to work now. The only question is how loud it is.
remember, guys, plug into the source before anything. If you want to make sure you got the juice, or you want to be heard, when you want to hear yourself, go ahead and plug into the source.
Yeah, I mean, I hear it. I hear that hum.
Yep, there's the hum.
There's the hum.
We can get that down. Okay, I heard that. Did you hear that?
I did.
I felt that.
The
Okay.
facial expressions on everybody who just felt it. We heard it.
Okay. Um. So these days, this is crazy. This is not what I expected to be doing, but this is perfect.
It is perfect.
These
It is
days,
perfect.
so I was talking about the Lament Project. In June, you were introducing that. So basically, it's 2014. I am doing kind of church ministry-ish with college students, and summer 2014 is the murders of Eric Garner and Michael Brown. And I don't know what to do with myself anymore. I don't know how to function. I'm explicitly in this season doing ministry with Black students. Like there's several functions of the ministry that I was in at the time. I was in it with Black students at the time. I don't know what to do. I feel like my whole faith is falling apart because I learned in a lot of ways how to follow Jesus in a way that not so much actively, but passively, in my case, told me that everything was just going to be okay. And that, God's going to take care of it. Right. And I just saw a lot of that not happening. Like I wasn't okay. A lot of people weren't okay. And people are dying and it just felt weird to me. Right. So I need a way to continue to hold on to my faith. And I realized that I was kind of like, God, this can't be like it, right? Like I was like, is this the end of the line? Like, am I losing my faith? Is this where it's happening? And then I read these things called lament psalms in the Bible, where the people of God are like, this is terrible. God, save us now, right? And it's very unambiguous. It's very clear what they're saying. And I was like, oh, wait, save us from what? And then I realized that the background program running in the whole Bible is a thing called empire. There is always an empire at work in the Bible. And I was like, what are they doing to them? Oh, they're enslaving them. Oh, right. And then I'm like, well, what about Jesus? And I'm like, oh, this is the worst one. Like the Roman Empire is designed to create peace through violence. It's designed to make people quiet through intense violent poverty and violent physical destruction. And so so all that to say, I was like, okay, I'm good. Like when I see Jesus on the cross now, I'm like, no, that's Jesus being killed by the confluence of powers between the temple that was insecure and Rome that was insecure, and they just wanted power. And Jesus was like, well, I'm going to confront your power with nonviolent resistance by loving the poor. You can do whatever you want to do. I had to start writing songs about that. Like, in order for me to stay sane and to stay grounded, I just had to write songs about that. So I'm gonna sing you. Wow, this is crazy. I'm gonna sing you something I wrote yesterday. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I'm just gonna sing like, I don't know how far I'm going to get into it because it's not really done. But one of the things I like as an artist is situations like this, because often pressure will make you finish things in a way that you're like, oh, I like that. And then sometimes you don't. So I don't have a title for this, but I'll tell you the first two lines and then maybe you might get it. The first two lines are, we are not your donors. We are not your atoning sacrifice. So, all right, let's see. We're experimenting here, right? So, we are not your donor. We are not Your atoning sacrifice. Our blood won't clean your filthy hands. Can't wash away the sins of our troubled land. Oh, Jesus, Lamb of God, your blood is what saves us. Your resurrection is our freedom. Jesus, Lamb of God, killed by the temple and the empire, rose again to mock their violent desires. Oh, there is life in the life of Jesus, in the blood and resurrection in Jesus. So stop killing us. We are not your donors. Your atoning sacrifice.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely remarkable.
So this puts me in like 1968 right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It puts me right in it.
Mm-hmm.
It puts me right in the summer '68. Okay, wow. I wasn't ready to time travel. I wasn't ready for an anthem. I wasn't ready for everyone's heart to come out of that. Um, so poignantly, so powerfully, so like precisely, with like acute pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, like thank you for voicing it, like scoring it just right. Like so 2014 to
Yeah.
now,
To
here
now.
to now, here we are, right? So literally you say 00 AD, 01 AD
Yeah.
to now,
Yeah.
right? The empire is, on the same hype. It's like
Same.
if I give up my power, it means that you might be lifted up.
Yep. Yep. Like, isn't that crazy though? But like, here's the thing. Like, I love and hate this moment we're having right now. Right. Like I love it because what I think people are realizing who are kind of like trying to keep some semblance of faith in this season is like the old, there's an old expression in the Bible about wineskins, right? Like you try to put new wine in an old wineskin and it breaks, right? Like I think people are discovering that there is a faith that we have been given, a lot of us have been given over the past 50 years in America, and it is insufficient for this moment. It is completely insufficient for this moment. It is a faith that is very violent. It is a faith that is very economically stratified. It is a faith that is that one of the things I believe is that for people, we are distinct, but we're also relational, right? And in a lot of ways, I think the American space, the white American space, is far too individualistic. And so what you have now is you have this moment coming where what we need from people is mutuality. Like we need shared struggle. What we need is a sense of shared communal sacrifice, right? not martyrdom and not the suffering of the empire that we choose, but we need to say, no, I'm going to give my life of my own accord. Like Jesus says, like I'm giving of my life in this community. And it's for us. It's for us to lift each other up. Right. And where are we finding that? We're finding that on the streets. We're finding that in the movements that have been doing work for a long time. And the church is moved, right? Like the church is moved. It's in the streets. Just like that is my observation right now. And so I feel like part of what I want to do is almost to my wife and I are co-pastors. And so part of what we want to do is make space for people to know, like, in this moment, you can find God. You're going to have to evacuate from some white supremacy. Like, it's going to be real hard for you because that's just what we know. All of us. Right. But I want to write stuff and make space for people to say, oh, yeah, like I'm in it. Right. And I need to leave. Or, yeah, I believe that. And you know what? I need to get out. Right. I'm here for that kind of self reflection and that kind of honesty. Like, I'm here for all that. So I feel like that's kind of the space that I want to make, that I want to see, that I'm proud to be a part of.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Because you're right. I want to add to that. It's like, because it's not just for the believer, right? It's for anyone that thinks they're doing good.
Yes.
Right. And it's anyone that says, I am an ally of this marginalized group.
Yep.
Right. Because the black man, right, who says he's an ally to the black woman, right, they have to say, well, am I doing it right, or is the way I'm doing it some like structure of white supremacy?
Yep.
Right. Yep. Is the way that I see the person next to me, right, diluted to where the lens that I'm looking through isn't even my own. Right. It's something that I adopted, right, that I'm assimilated into. Right. And right, what I see, the otherness that I see, right, like comes from something that was given to me through trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
right.
Say that. Cause
right. So yeah.
That's good. That's really good. And I feel like for myself, part of the reason why from 2014 to now, I feel like I have words and some freedom is because I've had to dial back into some trauma. Like, I've had to say, like, I've had to go around the well again, go around the onion again for another layer and be like, what are those mama issues exactly? Right. Like, we can't pretend like those aren't a part of the complex. Right. So I love that.
Because your line, when you say we are not your atoning sacrifice, is like indigenous woman.
Yep.
Black trans woman.
Yep.
Like infant, right, with no voice, elderly with no voice, right? It's like anyone that you can look over or leave out. Then because they are killed, right, now we have a reason to stand up. Like because they are murdered. Now there's a movement behind a life that didn't have to go, and right, a loss that we didn't really need for us. It's like when men say, oh, because I had a daughter, I'm gonna see the world differently, I'm gonna see women differently. It's like, you had the whole time. It's like when Lex Luthor got Superman powers for a day and then he sped it up, and as he's losing them, he says, I could have saved the world. And Superman is like, if you wanted to save the world, Lex, you're so smart that you could have saved us anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're sitting here with Jesus in our pews, with Jesus sitting next to us, laying down in the street across from us.
Yep.
Like, they say the closest you get to God is the person across from you, right? The quickest way to God, right, is the person in front of you.
Yeah.
Because God says, what you do for the least of these, right, you do for me. And so, like, I hear so many voices in that line. We are not your atoning sacrifice.
Mm,
I hear so many people. I hear so much loss just in this year, right? When you talk about atoning sacrifice, it's like whatever people die to, whatever you want to name it, whatever kind of coronavirus it is,
yep.
novel, new, or something
Old.
they reintroduced, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Whatever it is, people are dying.
Yep.
And like the way we come together is not by distancing ourselves from everyone's struggle. Like you say, it's learning everyone's struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean it's super powerful, especially given the conversation we just had with
Mm,
Lexi to now go into this conversation where you're using the kind of the horn, the signal, if you will, to get people to see, right? Like as soon as you hit those strings, emotions are struck, right? And I think that's the most profound thing about it is that, being black in America, historically, music was no, it ain't no was. It's always been ours, right?
yep. Yep.
When
Yep.
it comes to American music, it is black. There's
Yeah.
no denying it. When you take it to the the Yankee Doodle and all that, the man who wrote those songs literally saw music from black people working, copied it, resold it, and he still ended up pouring broke.
Mm-hmm.
So when you sit up here and you look at every song, every genre, everything you've ever listened to within the American context, that is black, fundamentally from the ground up. There
Yep.
ain't no American music industry. There's nothing, there's no pop music, there's no blues, no jazz. There is nothing, right? You don't get a Frank Sinatra without us.
Yeah.
And I think with your words and what you're touching on and how you're bringing the past 2020 years
Yeah.
that we've been living in, that we have been existing in, there's nothing more profound than understanding when we say 2020, it's not just the year, it's how many years it's been.
Yeah.
And here we are now, 2,000 years later, and something that is so profound that people want to use as a tool, right? Some
Yeah.
use it for division, some use it for community, some use it in so many different ways. But when you really look at the story and you really understand what it encompasses and what it's talking about, we're still in it.
We're still in it. Like I told someone today, like, you know, the dynamics of empire are old, right? We're in the white supremacist version right now. But this is millennia old, like these dynamics, right? Um, as you were talking, I was thinking about a book that I read. It's called Blues People. It's by a pretty important guy, Amiri Baraka. And it tells that story. It tells the story of the music of America from the perspective of Black folks. And he just weaves through these passages of blues music and how blues music got popular and what kind of racism the artist had to deal with to get on a label and how there were like race labels. I think that, I don't know if that's the actual term for it, but there are labels that would only sign Black people, right? Like it was the labels for Black people.
Right.
And how revolutionary Chuck Berry really was. Like that, what Chuck Berry did is unheard of. Like it's Chuck Berry, and then basically it's Chance the Rapper. Like in terms of like, I will buck all of the system. I will do it. I will create my own lane. I will make my own way for my own stuff. And then I'm going to bring all my friends with me. Right. Like, I'm going to bring Donnie Trumpet on with me. Like it's going to be a thing. We're going to do this. Right. Like it was so incredible for him to do that. And really, one of the heroes I have, Rosetta Tharpe, like she died in pain and sad and manipulated far before she was celebrated. And just a warning to the brothers, Sister Rosetta Tharpe was, she grew up in the church and her first manipulator was her first husband. a black man. So I just feel like, you know, there's always a cautionary tale for me, right? Wherever I stand in terms of like the kind of patriarchy that I have learned to be in and the way that I unlearn that. Her life is but one cautionary tale, but there are many. But I just feel like you said, the music is everything. The music is everything. The other thing I told somebody is like, for the most part, Black folks don't have a specific language, right? Like there are a lot of folks that come to this country, forced or otherwise, and they're coming from another place and they have a language. And we don't really have a sense of what that is for us anymore. Like that was taken away from us completely. But what we do have is music. What we do have is art. What we do have are images. What we do have is style, right? We have fashion, right? Like there's all these non-verbal dialects of Blackness that speak to us, that do a thing that feels like it's a native language to us. That I just love. I love it. I love it so much. That's part of the reason I love music in that way.
You know, definitely I share the sentiments.
As a singer-songwriter, Michael Eubanks, I feel as if because I've written songs as well, it's almost as if you have a responsibility to the culture, as well as to yourself, to express life, or some may say express your art from your viewpoint, to make sure that your truth is being expelled and being seen and acknowledged. So I would say, in the same fashion that Chuck Berry was using all of his multifacets of being musically inclined, you are doing just the same. I
appreciate that. That's some high praise. It truly, but I think it's so important, like especially right now, like especially in this moment, I'm looking for all the artists that are giving us language to kind of stay grounded in this moment, right? Like when I talk to people from age 30 to 70, especially old heads, you know, the uncles, the grandpas, right? Like I got some folks, they're like, this is not a drill, right? Like this is not a drill. We're here now. This is the next one. And I'm like, oh, okay, right? Like I needed them to tell me, because I wasn't gonna like sound an alarm. This is the next movement of America. Like I'm too young to be saying that. But when my elder tells me that, I'm like, okay, we're here. Okay, cool. And you're right. Like there is a responsibility in this moment. Like it is joyful, but it's not for fun. Like I just got to say, like there's a lot of joy, and also there's some work to be done.
Come on, y'all done got on me. I'm trying to give y'all that time.
No. Oh no. You ain't got to defend. You don't have to defend your silence, brother. You don't have to defend your silence at all. Now, Michael, I wanted to know how you and your wife are using music in your co-pastorship, to speak to your congregation in this time.
Yeah, that's a good question. And in fact, you know, if with us being on Zoom, I think we're using music a lot less. And so personally, what I'm trying to do is make sure I'm attentive to these moments where I'm expressing what I think are these like small slivers of moments, and then trying to put it out there as much as I can. I'm trying to figure out how to do that, because I've never really, like, to be honest, like I made a lot of music over the course of my life. I've always relied on like a physical audience to tell a story. So I feel like I'm behind in that way. So I'm playing a little catch up in that way. But as far as at our church, I think we're actually trying to use more than music. One of the things that we're trying right now is kind of a centering via images, right? Like I feel like a lot of the church space right now is heavy on words. People are trying to explain stuff, trying to break down what's going on. And I feel like actually what we do is we're trying to use other media and silence, right? Like I think that people just need a moment of silence to be able to dial into themselves right now. And to just be like, what's happening for me? Like, what is my body telling me? What is the spirit telling me? What am I feeling? How am I being agitated? How am I being moved? And to answer that for yourself, right? Like, you don't need us to tell you that. Like that's the thing. Like we need to, like we exist in community. And so there's a way that we bring that into a communal space, but also we just need the space to dial in and say what's happening for ourselves. So silence is important for us. We're trying stuff with images right now. There's a couple of artists doing some really dope stuff, visual artists that we're trying to kind of engage and just say, like, again, let's engage another sense. And then, we have a pretty radical, this is going to sound old school, but you just go with me. We have a pretty radical view of communion, the bread and the wine, right? If Jesus was a guy that was executed because of a conspiracy between the empire and the temple, then when we celebrate communion, it's really what you were talking about, where it's like, where do I go? Like where is Jesus? Jesus is with the suffering. Jesus is with those who are sick. Jesus is with those who are mourning, who are grieving. So when we take communion, it's actually a moment of solidarity, right? And actually, before we got to this church, it was actually this church's convictions about communion, wherein like it's supposed to actually be a meal, right? Like in a lot of the history of the church, this thing is actually supposed to be accompanied by an actual feast, right? And our church noticed like there's some people not being fed. So they started a food pantry, right? Like the food pantry is an act of communion. It's an act of saying we believe that everyone should be physically fed, right? And we're not trying to spiritualize anything. Like people need to eat. So that was started a while ago. It's still happening on our facility. It's actually the only thing happening on our facility right now. It happens every Thursday night. And they've seen a 50% increase since March, since COVID time, right? Wow. So I think communion is that other thing that is this moment of intense solidarity. And it's kind of sad that we're not together because when we do it, it's a together moment. We get up out of our seats, we go and we like embrace each other. It's this moment of reminding ourselves in our body that we're a community, right? So I think those are the things right now, kind of beyond the music, because music over Zoom is average at best. It's okay, but but we're leaning into other stuff because we have the opportunity to try some stuff.
Nice.
So where's this church at? Just to put that
San
out there.
Leandro, California, my friends. San Leandro. We're on Bancroft Avenue. If folks that are nearby San Leandro want to volunteer at the food pantry, you can hit me up because it's actually it started from the church and now it's its own nonprofit, but the church still is very much connected to it, and they need some volunteers. In fact, I'm trying to figure out how to give my time because I got 2 babies and we had to figure out the babies. Are the babies going to be okay?
real quick so we can put it down and share it.
Yeah.
Where can they reach out to you for, like, say people got time tomorrow at such and such? What time is the food pantry tomorrow?
It is 6 to 8 every Thursday. And so what you want to do is you can check out Bethel-community.org. bethel-community.org. And we have a place, a spot on our website called, I think it's called Partners. And they're one of the partners. So you can email them directly and they'll get back to you. They're in need of volunteers. And so they're not going to tell you no. And it's not rocket science. You give people bags of vegetables and you help people get fed.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with us, and really, you've fed us musically. You've fed us in the sense spiritually a bit in this whole conversation that we've all been engaging with. I definitely feel a little bit more refreshed. So I want to thank everyone for just being here, for being present.
No, definitely. And you know, I just want to also kind of, I mean, I do want to know, how did it end up being San Leandro of all places? I mean, you saying you came from what was once called South Central
Yeah.
to
So
now being
yeah.
in San Leandro, and you
Yeah.
are a Black man. So
Yes.
please, can you kind of give us some insight to that
Well,
journey?
it was an accident. I just got to say. So I was in South Central. I went to UCLA. I was around UCLA for a long time. My wife and I met on a blind date, but she was up here. She was in Berkeley. So we dated for a while, and then I moved up here, and we were in Berkeley for a long time. I think we were in Berkeley almost 10 years. And then life twisted us around, and we ended up kind of in the Eden area. So we were working at a church at Castro Valley, Hayward, and then got sent to San Leandro. And when we got to San Leandro, I have a habit of wanting to know the history of the places I live. And I looked up the history and I was like, what? This place is racist. So we're finding that out now because the police keep killing people in San Leandro, and my wife is very involved in some activism. And so we're doing it. We're doing it.
I mean, talk about the call to action. You are in the place to be. I mean, that's why I said it the way I did, because it is one of those things that you know, if you don't know, you know, it's easy to overlook what's going on everywhere. And you know, you just look underneath a rock, you gonna find something. And I think that's kind of the crucial component to you being in San Leandro and having the message, you showing up the way that you are, doing the things that you do. And it's important, like, you know, understand, like, San Leandro is within the Bay Area, kind of, you know, what we would call the Bay Area, but you don't often hear it brought up in the news. You don't really see it make the headlines, but there is things happening all the time. And so, you know, the power of you being able to be with us this evening and saying those things and being who you are and showing up the way that you have highlights the layers, the complexities of what we all are traveling through and what we're all dealing with. Because, you know, it, just to highlight it, we got to do it. If you didn't know, there's a jersey on the screen that says Wakanda
Forever.
Wakanda forever, for real, for real. You know, the importance of Chadwick Boseman in all the roles he's played, but not just to highlight what he's done, but what he was dealing with while he was doing it, right? Everyone has a struggle. Reserve some space to give a person that ability to go through their struggle, because it's easy to be on the outside looking in, and you want to say what it's like. You don't know, because it's not your life. And I think that's pivotal and crucial at a time like this, where, you know, you are exploring with us and showing us so much, but we have to really be mindful of our kinship to each other and giving us that space and compassion, that empathy to understand I'm going through something. You could very well be going through your own thing. And Chadwick Boseman is someone who we lost as a collective, as a community, as a whole, as a figure that we all looked up to in different capacities. But he had his own battle. He had his own fights while he showed up for us, while he carried the weight of us on his back. And I think that's kind of important that we really take that into account. And, you know, given the last week that we had, because that topped off a week of loss after loss after loss. So, you know, before anything else, let's have a moment of silence for everyone that we've lost, including Chadwick Boseman, in this time. often we do this and it happens more than enough. It's one thing when it's done through natural causes, it's another thing when it's done through tragedy. And I think that, for all of us, especially in what you were singing, what you gave us, and what Affluence said, right? Like, I need to value and fight for you while you're here. I need to show up for you while you're in front of me. It's
Mm-hmm.
not enough to engage after the fact, right? We often say you don't know how good you got it till it's gone, and we lose so much that we need to stop going with when it's gone, and we need to go with appreciating and giving ourselves to when it's here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Really understanding the power in everything that there is in existence, not when it's no longer here and we don't have
Mm-hmm.
access to it. Don't be selfish with it, right? Appreciate it. Take that time out. Really connect, build, talk to, see, validate, acknowledge that person.
Yeah.
Because right now, we don't know what everybody going through, right? You got to take care of the babies. And the babies are going to learn through your practice and how you are. And that's for all the babies.
Yep.
But it's more important for me to uplift and honor and value what you're doing in front of me versus anything happening beyond that. And that's kind of where hopefully we come from every time we come this week after every week. It's about community, it's about each other, it's about building, it's about exploring and discovering. And I think that, for me, I'm uplifted. I know I need this every week, but I appreciate you giving us so much of yourself in this moment, and really just giving us a whole vibe and a mood. Because I'm like, man, I gotta go do some reading. I gotta go listen to some songs. I gotta dig deeper in my own, you know, history to really redefine my present. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And thank you for being here with us. I mean, is there anything else you would like to highlight and uplift at this time?
Um, y'all are amazing. This is. I mean, I love the lyrical family. It's been a great space. And I love who you are. And um, my Instagram is Eubanks me, EUBANKSME. That's kind of the place where I'm trying to drop a lot of stuff these days. I feel like it's fun to be on Instagram right now. I'm really enjoying kind of that space. Um, and then I'd be remiss if I did not tell you that my wife is brilliant, and that if you are trying to understand kind of, you know, justice issues from a particular lens, she's writing about that on her Medium page. Erina is her name, Erina. So you can look up Erina Kim-Eubanks on Medium, and you will be able to you'll get some knowledge. She'll drop some on you. So this is
Okay.
great. This is amazing.
No,
Well, thank
definitely. I mean, we definitely gonna have to get a concert. We're gonna have to get you
Yes.
for our
Yeah.
first Friday pop off or something, because you done changed the whole focus of where I'm trying to take this.
That's what happened to me. I hear these chords, right? I hear these first strings, and like my camera, everything around me just starts like floating. It's like everything is now like weightless around me, as like the show itself, right? Is we've gone somewhere else now, June. June, like we're somewhere different now. So like June was in the studio a few weeks ago, and I was
Mm,
like, oh man, the show is something different.
mm,
And then we had like some stories being told, some Asian American stories being told, and we had Stay on, and the show went somewhere else. And then tonight we have Lexi and Michael come on, and he plays these strings after what Lexi just finished saying, and like we've gone somewhere else, and it's trippy to me to like to see that happen, because like what I get, like I think most, like what I take away from you tonight is that we cannot, like the elders told you, like we cannot let this time go without creators creating.
that's it.
um like period. Like because I think when I think about design per person and then collectively, and we talked about, Lexi talked about our roles in fighting for freedom, and everyone's role being important, then, right, every creator's role is definitely important because the creator then is someone who hopes, right? Right, because they're creating out of something that's not necessarily there.
Yep.
Until they create it.
Yep.
And their lens is unique to them and their experience and their traumas and their growth. And so we can't like let this time, if it's 1968 and 2020, right, then we do all have a responsibility to go into our space, our room, our corner, our NPC, our keyboard, our notepad, like wherever we create our canvas, whatever it looks like, right, and then go off. Whether you share it or not, it doesn't need to stay in you. And I think that's what I'm loving about like the multitude of podcasts and the multitude of platforms that now the internet is becoming something that it always should have been, I think. And now we have the opportunity, with life a little slower for some, to listen. And whenever I write something, I'm telling you where I come from. If you wrote something yesterday, right, then you're telling me about your journey from then to today.
Yep.
Right. And then everything before that, of course, comes with you. But as soon as I create something, right, then I'm telling you about my life, and I'm telling you where I'm coming from. So I'm telling you my history, right? Yeah. And like our history, yes, is important for like where we're going, but like our history, I think it's listening to each other's history, right? Is how we learn about each other, right? And then it's how we love each other, right? It's like when you go around and listen to people, like you're loving them.
People's now is listening to tomorrow's history, so that's it. Just we're recreating history as we speak.
Yes, June. Yes.
But I do have a little request. It doesn't have to be now, but typically when we sign off, we do a lyrical one song. But I was going to ask Mr. Michael Kim-Eubanks if there was something on his heart he wanted to play before we all skedaddle for the evening. But it doesn't have, no, there's no rush.
Let me see. What do I want to do? Oh, that's what I want to do. Okay. So there's an artist named Reverend Sekou. You should find him. He is brilliant. He is some kind of African that grew up in Arkansas, and he's about 5 feet 4 inches tall. You should look up his tiny desk. There's a song written by the Peace Poets, who are an artist collective in New York City, and he sung this song. It's called Neighbor. So let me see. All right. It goes like this. I can hear my neighbor crying, saying I can't breathe. Now I am in the struggle, saying I can't leave. We're calling out the violence of the racist police, and we ain't gonna stop until the people are free. We're calling out the violence of the racist police, and we ain't gonna stop until the people are free.
Ashe, thank you.
Episode 14, Lyricist Ones. This has been an amazing and powerful night. This is crazy. This is everything I needed it to be. You are with us. We are with you. Michael, thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time out for experimenting with us in the moment and giving us what we needed. This was healing, this was nourishing, this was fulfilling to the soul. And the as we take it back to what Lexi was saying around code switching, it's really understanding the love language that needs to be conversed or communicated with whoever we are talking to.
Mm.
And in this moment in time, the love language is very clear, has been spoken profoundly, and it is highly appreciated. So, if there's anybody with any closing thoughts or closing words, please, by all means, this is the time to let it fly.
I want to thank my co-hosts, Junie B, Cineo Sin. I want to thank our guests tonight, Michael Kim-Eubanks and Lexi Butler. Just want to thank the ancestors, like literally, if you just define them as those folks who are not with us no more, for supporting us, for lifting us up and putting us on their shoulders. And I'm just in a place of gratitude, I think, right now, because it's interesting, like when you move in your purpose and then get to see other people moving in their purpose and in their design, because I think that's when you can see like the world changing. So like for me, it's like when people say, where's the change happening? What do what's next? I think today is next. Tomorrow is next. Waking up and listening to what's calling you and calling to your spirit and to your heart. And when you taking those moments where you have somebody in front of you and treating it as precious, because now we're in a space where we don't have as many people in front of us, or the way that we are in front of each other is different now. It's digital, but it's not less precious. And so I thank you, for being a part of this precious moment with me, guys, and allowing me to be here. I love it. Lyrical ones, 1-4, double sevens. We made it. That's 2 weeks of, no, it's not. It's
14 weeks.
14 days is 14 days is 2 weeks. We 3.5 months in. That's nice. Who knew we get this far?
Who knew we get this far? You see?
And they just keep getting better. This is your commute podcast. This is us rounding it up for the night. If you got a long commute, we thank you for being an essential worker. If you don't have a long commute and you just got gardening and babysitting or homeschooling to do, and you put us on in the background, we didn't get no cussing in tonight, so this is a good episode to listen to with your kids.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We love you. Lyrical ones.
Lyrical ones, we out.
Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever.